Batman. Batman, Spider-Man.
He really is black. He really is the Dark Knight.
I don't want to start the show that way. Anyway, so here we are, Two Non-Critics, after several weeks of being way back. Not that anybody missed us, but here we are.
Hi.
And hi. Yeah, I'm Non-Critic Dustin. With me is,
Non-critic Will.
and by with me I mean from all the way halfway across. Oh, you're all the way across the country. Beyond that, actually.
3,000 miles or so.
3,000 Miles to Graceland. Isn't that a movie? That had Kurt Russell and is Nicolas Cage in that? I think he was.
I think, yeah, he
Or
was.
was it 300? It probably wasn't 3. I don't know. I never saw it.
Me neither.
But anyway, two non-critics, two lifelong friends and film buffs, very different movie tastes, coming together to talk about movies. Today we're changing things up a little bit. We meant to talk about Guillermo del Toro's first movie, Kronos, but at the last minute I decided to talk about 6 Days to Air instead. The reason for this? No idea. I just suddenly decided I would much rather talk about this. I have a lot more to say on this documentary. I've seen this documentary I don't know how many times since it first aired. And I guess you can consider it a movie, but it's just kind of like a special that Comedy Central aired. But it's something I've been wanting Non-Critic Will to watch for years, and then so finally saw the opportunity for him to watch it with this show. But just real quick history with my appreciation for South Park. I was there the day South Park first aired. I was excited for it. I watched it and I loved it, and I watched it faithfully since then. I've seen not only every episode, but every episode multiple times. I love Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I think they're not only comedic geniuses, they're storytelling geniuses. I just love those guys. What about you?
Well, my first experience with South Park, it was by accident, actually. Me and my sister, we were kids. We were just turning through channels one night, and we stopped at this cartoon show, and we're like, oh, cartoon, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it just became weird because they started cursing and everything, and we're just like, what kind of cartoon is this? And then the moment that we saw Kenny died, we were both sad, like, what the hell? Like, that's your friend, right? Like, because they're like, oh my God, they killed Kenny, you bastards, and they just go on about their day, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, that's your best friend. What happened? Like, he's dead. Like, are you not gonna investigate like what's going on here? Like, I couldn't understand it. And then after that first cartoon, we both became hooked, and then started trying to find out when it's aired. You know, what day it's going to be on TV or whatnot. And from there, it just picked up. And each episode I watched just went closer and closer to pushing that envelope. Is pretty much opening a goddamn envelope up. So from there, I mean, South Park, it has been a very interesting show, entertaining and funny. I haven't watched it recently. I haven't watched like the recent seasons or whatnot, but I just seen little clips of some of these new seasons, and it just continues to go over the top.
Yeah, it does. I mean, they mention it in this documentary, and it's really true. When you watch the first season of South Park compared to what's going on now, it's so tame. You like my parents. I used to have to watch South Park in secret. My parents didn't want me watching it. They thought it was filthy. So I'd wait until they went to bed, and I'd watch it in my room and laugh, and we'd all talk about it in school. And we were like, we can't believe they're able to put these things on TV, these images, and say these things, and curse as much as they do. And now you watch it now, and it's so much more extreme than it was back then. Like, you watch the old episodes now, and you're like, why wouldn't they let me watch it? Look at this other stuff. Like, I remember one of the funniest things in the new season was they were doing the TSA, where people were dying in the toilet, So you had the
Yeah.
TSA. They had to scan you and everything before you went down to sit on the toilet. And every time they'd say, "Let me check inside your asshole." And I would die every time they said it. And I was like, even that joke wouldn't necessarily work on the first season of South Park. They'd have to say butthole or something like that. I mean, like they'd say ass, but they couldn't just say, "Let me check inside your asshole." It's come so far, and it's like Trey Parker and Matt Stone's creativity is boundless, and it's just I love it so much. So, what do you think of the documentary, 6 Days to Air, the making of South Park?
Well, when you first told me about, well, I mean, watching it, I forgot what 6 Days to Air was. I'm like, okay, I know you told me about this before, but I just forgot because we haven't talked about it in a while. So I didn't know what to expect. So then when I looked it up on the internet, it said 6 Days to Air, the making of South Park. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, this is this should be fun. This should be interesting. So when I started watching it, pretty much the whole thing is only 40 minutes. It's a 40-minute documentary. But the whole thing was interesting. I mean, just showing how far Matt and Trey have come from '97, I believe it started, all the way up till now. And like we both were saying, like you were saying, mostly how tame it was back in '97, and even not even with the explicit jokes, the cursing and whatnot. Even the graphics. The graphics were pretty dull or so back in '97, and then they got a bigger budget, they got more money to use, and better designs, more characters, and then more explicit scenes as well. Even with the scenes, it's become more crazy, more graphic now. But showing how just two guys just started off just doing something that they love, doing a little skit, and then them trying to make it big and seeing how successful it's become. It's a great thing. It just shows how if you put your mind to something, you can do it. You can succeed, but you just have to keep working at it, and that's what they did. That's what they did. There was some times where they just got, I don't want to say bored, but they just had their moments like, fuck this show. This is a boring episode. I don't want to do this. But they took everything in stride and they kept going, and they made something that is just common to the people nowadays, to the market, to America. It's just common. Like when you see something extreme or explicit shown and you just put the name South Park, instead of being like, oh my god, you're just like, oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, that's South Park.
It's South Park. I think that's something they didn't say those exact words, but they said it's something like that. When you see something explicit, something just like South Park, oh, okay, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
But the documentary overall, like I said, it was very interesting. I liked it. I liked it a lot actually, because not for the fact that it's South Park, but it just shows how just two people that started from nothing, just doing a little skit, turn into something big that is known all over now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the most interesting thing about the documentary. I mean, you can appreciate it on a lot of different levels. You can look at it as how much more advanced and efficient the production of South Park has become. What used to take months to produce one episode now takes a matter of days, and that they have this entire facility which is entirely self-sufficient. Although they work for Comedy Central, they work in their own little bubble. They don't get notes from Comedy Central except for when the whole Muhammad thing happened. But other than that, they don't really have to worry about any interfering, anything. They have built up this level of what's what I'm looking for, of reliability that the entire network just kind of lets them do what they do, and that's amazing to watch that. But you're right. The most interesting and most fascinating thing about it is to see their journey from just these friends who met in college and made each other laugh to these, like I said, geniuses. The multi-time, or whatever, however you say that, multi-Tony award-winning team, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for the Book of Mormon. It's just insane.
I mean, they said they're both like they're in their 40s now, and they're still going strong, and it still makes them die laughing like the very first day they started doing it.
Hmm.
So, and the fact that even though with their dull moments they have their pissed off moments about the show or about maybe I could have done this better, they still love what they do. They still have passion for what they do, and that's important because with that passion, that's what draws the fans closer to it. Because you can tell in your work if you put your heart and soul into it. If I just see like as much as it's progressed now, if it started reverting back, I'm like, okay, they just really don't give a shit no more. They
Hmm.
really want this show to end. But the fact that they keep coming up with new things, new ideas, new materials, and because of course because different things happen in the world each day, new things happen, so they have an infinite amount of material to use. Like, oh, this happened in Afghanistan. Let's write a scene about this. Like it's good that they still have that passion, that desire to do the show.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and it's I think a fascinating also look at the creative process and how when you're somebody who wants to go to make art for a living, which is something I want to do. You have those moments where you're just like, oh, I don't feel inspired today. I'm not going to do it.
mhm.
And you say, I can't force it. You come up with all these excuses on why not to do something. And that's when most people fail. That's why I have failed so far, is because there's a number of days I wake up and I'm like, I am going to kick this day in the ass. I'm going to make some shit. I'm going to write some shit. I'm going to put that shit out there, and I'm going to promote it. But then
at
just
the end at
something
the end of the
happens.
day,
Either,
at the end of the day, you're just like, fuck this shit.
yeah, fuck this shit. Yeah, I'm going to cut this shit, and I'm going to just, like I say, if I eat something bad for myself, then I'm like, ugh, I just don't want to do anything, or I just get in like a funk, and then I just don't make anything. They literally throw themselves in a room and they make it happen.
Yeah.
It's because people tend to think that stories, especially, are these ethereal, living things that you have to nurture, and then eventually they come out. And if that's your process, that's your process. We look at George R. R. Martin, the creator of the book series, which became Game of Thrones. That's
Hmm.
how he writes. He spends years crafting these huge books and making sure that they're perfect. And he calls himself a gardener. He lets it grow and he nurtures it. But
Hmm.
then you've got guys out there who, like, say, a mystery writer of some kind, Agatha Christie or something, who just cranked out a book every couple of months, just cranked it out because it was work. And
Yeah.
whatever your process is, that's your process. And I think what this shows is sort of a blending of the two. Like, yes, they get down to crunch time and they're like, we have to do this. We have to. But once that story starts to emerge, they don't force it. You know what I mean? Like, they'll
Hmm.
force themselves, they'll beat themselves up until a story starts to emerge, and then once it does, they just do whatever they can to make sure it's as good as possible. And
Yeah.
I think that's super inspiring for
Um,
anyone. I don't know. That sounded
th-
funny.
um, there is one thing. Actually, what we were just talking about before we started recording. I wanted to ask you this question, and I definitely just want to hear your opinion about this one. This is gonna be great. But anyway, back in the day when Family Guy when Family Guy first came out, you liked Family Guy.
Yes,
Now you hate it.
yes.
What is that difference from Family Guy and South Park that you just hate Family Guy now?
Well, I think Family Guy is a show that gets old very quickly. I think it's a show that doesn't stay true to storytelling, it stays true to jokes. And so it just keeps throwing jokes out there. It doesn't care so much about um, keeping with the world that it's built as much as it's like, let's just make people laugh, and that's fine. And so they take as many easy jokes as they can, and for me that became very, very grating and boring. And what I noticed on South Park is not only do they push the envelope and try to get more extreme and more funny, but they are really, really concerned with telling a good story that keeps within the reality of the world they've created. Like they say it in the documentary specifically. They say like you can tell sometimes they'll be auditioning new writers because I mean there's really only like 4 writers ever on the show, and Trey and Matt do most of it. But they have the other writers who come in and pitch them ideas, and he'll say, you know, we'll be rolling along, and then somebody will say, oh, and then this person says this. And you're like, no, that character would not say that. That's not the same on Family Guy. The Family Guy, any character will say anything because it's fun. Like I noticed once I was watching something, and one of my favorite characters on that show was Chris. That's the son, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it was Chris. And then they started just making him say things that I don't think Chris ever would have said, because Chris is kind of a moron. And they would make him just throw jokes out there that, like there was the one episode, I think, where Chris and Meg end up making out in the closet, or even having sex. I don't remember what happened.
Some Halloween special, the spin the bottle thing.
Yeah, and then Meg's like, hey, maybe that boy will call me. You know, they're like talking about going on, and like they're using innuendos and everything. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, and maybe that cute boy will call me someday, trying to be sweet. And he's like, I wouldn't bet on it. And I'm like, that's not something Chris would say. You know, I think he might not want to call her, and I get why the joke is funny, but it's not something he would say. I don't know. There's just that's pretty much it, I guess. Like it's
okay. What is the comparison? Like how I said with South Park that they have an infinite amount of material because just worldly news, everything that happens, new things that happen each day.
Mm-hmm.
Family Guy does the same thing. Mm-hmm. They make jokes or whatnot with things that happen in the world today, just like South Park does. What is that difference? Because they both have different styles of how they bring out their jokes.
Mm-hmm.
But what is that difference that makes Family Guy unappealing to you?
Well, besides the fact that I think Family Guy goes for more obvious jokes, they go for the jokes that pretty much anyone will laugh at.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have that sort of surprise element to me. Just doing commentary on what is going on in the world isn't in itself interesting and funny. Mm-hmm. What South Park does is they take extremes and they spin it to such an extreme and keep spinning it and keep spinning it and keep moving it.
They make a story.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's that too. But what I mean is they'll take the concept, like the idea of, they talked about it in this documentary, but it just suddenly came to my brain. They talk about how the basketball players, how they're not getting paid enough to really bring their, like all these people are making all this money on them,
but they can't bring their mom to the game.
Yes, they can't bring their mom to the game. And so they created the crack baby basketball episode where Cartman goes to ridiculous lengths to just get crack addicted babies to, like, it was either play basketball or fight each other. It was like crack baby fighting or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's being able to know that it's commentary on something that's really happening, but also just be a good story and be really funny. Family Guy doesn't have that. Family Guy, I've never watched a Family Guy episode and felt like that was a good story. I may have laughed a lot, but I didn't. Yeah. And like I said, that's the Family Guy brand. That's what they do, and it's just, I got bored of it pretty much.
Okay.
And I think Seth MacFarlane just, I don't know. I have more respect for Seth MacFarlane than I used to, but I think he just sort of, I don't know, man. I don't want to make any personal judgments about him. I'm talking about his work, because he might be the nicest, coolest person I've ever met, but I haven't met him, and so I can't say that about him. But it's just everything about the stuff he does just got really tired and the same. Like on
Yeah.
South Park, you can tell that Trey Parker and Matt Stone do 99% of the voices. But even though you know that, it doesn't feel samey. It
Yeah.
feels different. On Family Guy and American Dad, it's just kind of like you know that's Seth MacFarlane, and if you are cool with that, that's fine. But if not, it doesn't work. I don't know. You still like Family Guy, right?
Um, I do, but just like South Park, I haven't really watched Family Guy in a while. Like both shows, I haven't really watched the recent seasons or anything. So it's like I got stuff to catch up on. If I just feel like having a laugh or whatnot, or hearing a good story. The most recent, as far as South Park, the most recent thing that I have experienced with South Park was that, like I said, that game that came out, The Stick of Truth, which
Yeah.
is a spot on. Like that is a really good game because it is a story. It's like an epic story trying to find this so-called stick of truth, and it's kind of set like a Lord of the Rings
Mm-hmm.
type of thing, and you get to create your own character, and the whole game itself you looks like you're in a South Park episode from start to finish. Like your movements, everything, the explicit jokes, the cursing, it's all like you're in a 3 or 4 hour South Park movie. It
Mm-hmm.
feels just like that. So, in the fact that you have your own character to play a role in that, it's amazing. So, I mean, as far as what you're saying with that, I can see because I don't think I would get that same experience with a Family Guy game or something like that. I don't think I get that same experience as I do because, like you said, like with this one, I feel like I'm a part of the story. I'm in an epic adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Fam, Family Guy is just jokes.
Yeah, it is, and it's like I said, it's fine if it works for you. Something else I wanted to bring up is that well, since we're talking about storytelling and how South Park does it so well, I don't think any animated series can do multi-parters better than South Park. If you look at the Imagination Land trilogy, have you seen that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Jesus, I've watched that I don't know how many times, and every time I do, I notice something different, and I appreciate it more.
Hmm.
There's the well, I don't know if there's a title for this, but there's the episodes where uh, you remember the oil spill that was going on forever in the ocean, and BP oil was trying to
Yes.
cover it up, and then say we're sorry. And
Hmm.
they did a series of episodes about that, and it was like 4 episodes or something, and it eventually got into like you learn that Kenny that the fact that he can't die is an actual power he has, and
Yeah.
that he always keeps coming back to life, and he remembers every single time he dies. And that was really interesting because it really built into the mythos of the show a little bit, and it built in like this epic storyline that had Cartman riding on the back of Cthulhu going to kill Justin Bieber and all this stuff, and all that stuff itself is funny, and it really worked within that storyline. And just recently, just last season, they did a huge epic inspired by Game of Thrones about Black Friday, and
Yes.
like yeah, and it's like every episode begins, has the South Park intro, but it has a new version of the Game of Thrones music.
Yeah.
And so like the one of them, they just keep saying wiener
Yeah.
because
And,
Game of Thrones is obsessed with boobs and wieners.
and it was dealing with like Xbox One versus PS4 and
Yep.
everything with the. But yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that when I
That.
was in LA.
Oh really?
Yeah, when I was in LA, I seen that.
It's and like I said, not only is it funny, not only is it topical, but it's just really entertaining storytelling and how
you
each
know
episode carries into the next one. It's fascinating.
what's I was thinking this before we got on. Um, it's nowhere. It's not a great comparison, but it has a little bit of similarities. Is like of course Rugrats,
Mm-hmm.
Nickelodeon show Rugrats. They would always go on some type of epic adventure, and they through their eyes they see a whole world of imagination, chaos, adventure, danger. Like they see that, and it's the same type of concept with South Park. Just that South Park is, of course, way more explicit, way more over the top, of course, than what Rugrats was. But they had that same type of concept where what it looks like you just have these kids fighting with sticks, but in their mind they have lightsabers, swords, ninja stars, and everything like that. And Rugrats actually had the same type of concept. That was actually
Yeah,
spot on.
the big difference is, I mean, yeah, there's having fun with weapons, which is that episode you were just talking about, where in the kids' minds they look like they're in an anime and they look all,
Yeah,
and you've got the
but not
Japanese theme song and stuff. So,
yeah,
I mean, they have other episodes where they do that, but what I was going to say
yeah,
is the big difference is a lot of the epic journeys that the kids go on in South Park, they're actually going on.
hmm
I mean, I really love the episodes where the kids are just being kids and they're
hmm
playing with the toys, or there's the one where they all are pretending they're cops and they actually start to like go undercover and stuff like that. But I also love that you can have an episode where they end up going like back in time, or they end up traveling across space with aliens, or into the imagination. Things. The show is just full of imagination and just it can go anywhere and do anything. It's great. But something else I wanted to say about Trey Parker and Matt Stone themselves is talk about some of the other stuff they've done, which they mention a little bit. I mean, they mentioned Book of Mormon a lot in the documentary
yeah.
because it just came out when it aired. But have you seen have you seen the other stuff they did, like Cannibal the Musical, Orgasmo, Team America? Well, have you seen
Team,
anything about Book of Mormon?
Team America, not the Book of Mormon.
No, but have you seen? You haven't seen Cannibal the Musical?
Cannibal the Musical, no.
Oh Jesus!
I
I
haven't
first
seen
saw
it.
that. I first saw that about a little over 10 years ago, and by that time it had already been out for about 10 years.
Oh, jeez.
And it's at the minute I saw it, I like fell deeply in love with it, and all the songs got stuck in my head. I'm shocked I haven't shown it to you yet. We're gonna have to talk about it on the show.
Definitely, definitely.
But so Team America, you said you didn't see Orgasmo?
I saw bits and pieces of Orgasmo.
That was the first non-South Park thing that I saw from those guys, and they did it before South Park or during the first season, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching it, and Mike Smeagol and I were obsessed with it.
Schneeber.
And I remember starting to write a sequel to it. I started to write a comic book sequel to Orgasmo. That's how much I loved it. And but I mean, all of their work, you can see a progression in it. You see Cannibal the Musical is very, very cheap. You can tell it's cheap. The beards look hideous, but they use it to their advantage. And I think part of that is because they're such big Monty Python fans, and that's what they did. Orgasmo's a little more polished. You can tell he learned maybe we shouldn't go all over the countryside. Maybe we should stick to one area.
Yeah.
But then you have South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. When that movie came out, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
It was insane. I never imagined that, first of all, there'd be a South Park movie, and I never imagined it would be that graphic. And I remember at the time the animation in it was insane. It was incredible. And you watch it now, it's like an okay episode of the show. Have you
Yeah.
watched that lately?
Yeah. I mean, okay, there was one specific episode that I seen that I knew that they just went above and beyond the limit. Was I get it was an episode with Miss Chokes on Dick.
Oh,
Her and
yeah,
her and Mr. Garrison. They were.
it was Mr. Mackey, wasn't it?
Was it Mr. Mackey? Mr. Oh, man.
I was like, oh, Miss Chokes on Dick. Mm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was with Mr. Mackey, but there was a scene with Mr. Garrison got a sex change,
Mm-hmm. And
and
he became Mrs. Garrison.
Mrs. Garrison, and then there was he was like bent over there, the table or the desk is getting rammed, and they showed it, and I'm like, what the hell? What
Mm-hmm.
have we gone to with South Park? Like,
Yeah, have you seen the episode? It's a two-parter. It's where I can't remember. I think it's called Science Go or something like that.
Mhm.
and Richard Dawkins, the famous biologist and huge proponent of evolution, was having lots and lots of sex, disgusting sex with Mrs. Garrison. And it was, I remember watching that and almost feeling uncomfortable. Yeah, I had that same thought you had where I was like, I don't know, I think South Park might be going too far for me now. But I mean, but the thing is, the story that was going on where Cartman is really far in the future and they're doing like this Buck Rogers type story, that was enough to keep me interested. And I actually really love those episodes now. But at first, it was pretty shocking to see that. And I have to say, something they talk about, I think, in this is, I mean, I've heard them talk about, I've seen so many interviews with those guys, that the Book of Mormon, which I have not had the privilege of seeing live because I think you have to buy tickets like 10 years in advance for that fucking thing. But I have seen a bootleg of it on somebody's
Yeah.
cell phone, and even that bootleg, I was very impressed with it. Like, not only are the songs actually pretty damn good, but the jokes are really funny, and a lot of people have said this, and it's totally true. There's a lot of heart to it, and I think that's something that South Park does, and that The Simpsons does, that Family Guy doesn't. Is
Mhm.
there's a lot of heart behind it. As gross and disgusting and crazy as that show gets, not only can you tell that they love what they're doing, but they love the world they've created, and sometimes you get a sense that the characters in it are really sweet, and you feel real emotion for them sometimes. I've never felt that way with Family Guy. I felt like
You know,
that way with The Simpsons quite often, but not Family Guy.
another show, another TV show, comedy, but not animated, that I feel that same way about is Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Just
Mm-hmm.
their antics, their jokes, the explicitity that they get up to, um, for a live action, for a real life TV show. They really do a good job. I think I saw a documentary actually of how they started
Mm-hmm.
out, and it was I'm not going to say the same as Trey and Matt, but they jumped through some of the same hurdles to get to where they are now with the show.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
fact that they keep producing and still, have it as their passion, it's a nice thing, and that's a funny show as well. So.
yeah, that's a very, very funny show. I wanted to ask you, since we should probably wrap this up pretty soon, because we've talked very little about the documentary itself and more on the just South Park in general, which I expected. Was there anything in the documentary that really stuck out to you or surprised you didn't expect to either maybe you didn't know that part of the legacy of South Park, or maybe you were just whatever struck you?
um, well, okay, well there was one part that I won't say like struck me, but there was a part that stuck up that I thought was just crazy over the top was when they were going to the Oscars.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, when they were number one, they were dressed up. They were in dresses. They were in female dresses, and they were
Jennifer
on these.
Lopez dress and Gwyneth Paltrow's dress.
Oh jeez, oh my god, and they and they were on LSD. They said that their friend had these little sugar cubes of LSD. So for them, just going over the top like that, just the fact that they admitted it on the documentary, I was just like, really, like that's something I would not admit to, but okay. And
See why not?
it's like they were just
That's a
trying to
funny story.
they were just trying to concentrate on not saying anything in regards to the dress. They just said, "Oh, it's a magical night. It's so
Yeah,
it's just a magical night. Why we're here? What's with the dress? Oh, it's just a magical night."
really magical to be here. It's a great night.
I'm just surprised that they didn't like trip any further than what they already were. I mean, because if they were on LSD both, and they're right at the red carpet and Oscars and stuff like that, and they're doing interviews, I would expect to see them trip balls, but they held it together.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I think that the Oscars are tame enough for them to just sort of be all right. But the thing that struck me, and this is going to sound really silly, I think, but the thing that struck me in the documentary was there's a scene where Matt goes out to grab lunch. He comes back with McDonald's for Trey. He's just
Oh
sitting there
yeah.
writing, and he gets like a Big Mac and a bunch of nuggets and stuff. He's like, "This is the worst part. Well, I'm just here writing, and I'm not even worried too much about that. I'm like looking around at his office, and to me, it's a huge office,
Yeah.
and it's probably as big as my apartment. And then he goes around and he starts pointing out all the Star Wars Lego stuff he put together and how he has the AT-AT that actually walks and all that stuff. And I was like, that, as silly as it sounds, that's what I want. Uh, One day, I want to be someone who has created something substantial enough that I'm not only am I able to make my living at it and enjoy doing it, but I can be in my nice big office with
Hmm.
some maybe McDonald's, probably not, but maybe, and surrounded by merchandise of things I enjoy, and that really spoke to me originally, and that, to know the journey they took to get there. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, well, they won a bunch of Tony Awards, which is very, very respectable. They've been nominated for Academy Awards, and all that. And wouldn't you want that? Like, no, I want a nice big office surrounded by Star Wars Legos and someone bringing me McDonald's when I'm what I want in my life. So that's why I watch that. I watch the documentary whenever I'm feeling particularly shitty about the choices I've made and that. Oh no, my cat wants to be in the show. This will get us more views. Um, um,
Watch
so
comments. Oh, that's a cute cat.
um, and it's now he's gonna leave now. Oh no, he's still here. Let me lift him up here. Here, thank you. Anyway, um, I watch the show whenever I'm particularly upset about choices I've made, work I didn't finish, and I watch it and I say, well, if I do buckle down, maybe I can be like those guys. I can create something I love that other people love too. Brings me in an income that's satisfying. So
Yeah.
that's what I hope for. Anyway, with the arrival of the cat and the fact that my power jack, half the battery is drained already. This thing is ridiculous. I should probably go. Anyway, so if I get the computer working again, we can do a show tomorrow as well. But until then, I'm non-critic Dustin, and you are.
Not critic. Well,
And sorry for the abrupt ending, but sometimes